right, hello everyone. It's great to be here. I'll start with a huge disclaimer. 18 months ago, I had never founded a business and I had never raised money for it. So you can take what I say with a pinch of salt, or I guess you could see that as fresh perspective. But today, for founders in the room who are looking to have the most positive impact possible at scale, I wanted to share some learnings in building Upway over the last year. And in particular, I hope our story is helpful for those who are wondering, can my business be both mission-driven and VC-backed? Our story started 18 months ago. So basically, my co-founder, Stéphane, and I, we left our jobs at Uber. And frankly, at the time, all we had in mind was, how can we have the most positive impact possible at scale? So it's not much to get a business started. So the first thing we did was, let's lock ourselves in a house, and for 1 week, let's figure out what we're going to do. It was a painful process, and I don't necessarily recommend it. But after probably like 60 hours of brainstorms, after probably a couple of fights, we ended up building a super strong conviction. What we saw was that electric bike sales were exploding everywhere. Maybe I can ask, like, who in the room has ever tried an e-bike? Have you ever been riding an e-bike? Ooh, quite popular in the room, amazing. So what we saw is that e-bikes are incredibly popular because they're incredibly convenient. You can commute without sweating to the office regardless of the distance. You can take your kids to school without being stuck in traffic jams for hours. And so because of that convenience, because they're effortless, they're getting incredibly popular. But even more important to us, what we saw is that e-bikes are actually incredibly helpful in solving some of today's biggest society challenges. Put simply, an e-bike delivers and emits 30 times less carbon emissions than a car for every kilometer ridden. And so we thought that's an amazing behavior to encourage. What are the problems that this market is facing? And what we saw is that two things and two blockers were holding people back from jumping on the e-bike trend. The first is that e-bikes and new e-bikes are expensive. Most people still can't afford it. And the second, frankly, for each of you in the room, how many of you would be confident buying an e-bike from someone anonymous online for 2,000 euros? What we saw was that people did not trust buying secondhand because of the price and the complexity of the product. And so we started getting quite excited. We started seeing a picture of a future world where we could, really solve these issues. We started imagining, what if we could build a global platform that sells professionally refurbished e-bikes under warranty? What if we could offer a wide range of choice, hundreds of brands, hundreds of models? What if you could pay for a fraction of the price of new if you buy it? And what if you had the peace of mind that this bike was fully checked by a professional and came with a 1-year warranty? So that felt a compelling picture, an exciting prospect. So we got started into doing some work, and what we saw was a bit jaw-dropping. We realized that there was an enormous challenge ahead for us. There's about 25 million e-bikes already in circulation in Europe alone. And so if we wanted to have any kind of meaningful impact, we would need to give a new life to millions of them in just a couple of years. And so clearly to us, that meant that we couldn't do this alone. And turning to VCs and raising money was a very natural and obvious choice. But for the founders in the room who are asking themselves that question, I wanted to share some of our thinking process in reaching that conclusion. When we asked ourselves, should we raise VC money, the first thing we did expect, and the first thing we kind of had in mind, was that it would provide, of course, enormous financial leverage. And that financial leverage means that you can deploy faster. We were able to open 2 warehouses in 6 months after launch. It means you can have broader impact, you can reach a broader audience faster. And it means you can go international and have the kind of impact you want to have in multiple countries quicker. We were able to open 4 countries in our first 8 months of operations. I think the thing we didn't expect as much was how much operational leverage working with VCs has provided us with. To give you a concrete example, within our first month of operation, Global Founders Capital, one of our investors, introduced us to the person who is now our tech lead and was instrumental in scaling across multiple countries in no time. That would not have been possible without it. And very similarly, the network of founders they opened up and the way they challenged our thinking simply accelerated our learning curve and enabled us to ultimately have the kind of impact we want to have at a much faster speed. And so when we look at the situation today and try to look back at this decision, it's very clear to us that it was the right call. Where we're at is that with the $30 million that we raised over the last 12 months, we were able to expand to France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. We were able to refurbish over 5,000 e-bikes already. And frankly, we were able to get confirmation that we could build back trust in the second-hand e-bike market. And so that felt like it does feel like the right decision for us. For the founders out there who are building those mission-driven businesses and asking themselves how to make it work when working with VCs, I wanted to share 3 learnings about what it takes to successfully raise money working with VCs in a mission-driven business. The first lesson that we took away, speaking with probably 50 plus VCs over the last 12 months, was you need to learn to speak the same language. What I mean by that is, at the end of the day, what we want to do is impact billions of miles traveled and moving them electric. We want to enable millions of people to buy an affordable e-bike across the globe. What VCs typically want is, of course, a large addressable market. Those things have an enormous overlap as long as you frame it the right way. Similarly, we want to have an impact over the long run. We want to be able to support and support our business over long timelines and have the financial viability, have the healthy foundations to support that. The good news is VCs are looking for the same thing. They want to make sure that they maximize chances of survival for the companies they invest in. And finally, we know that customer expectations will change. We know that the way we operate today won't work tomorrow, and we want to have the ability to invest in continuously adapting our business. And ultimately, the same reasoning applies when VCs think about the financial return and the profitability they want to generate. And so having a clear understanding of your cost and the margin you will need to keep investing in the business is ultimately a very similar exercise as the profitability outcomes that VCs will be looking for. So ultimately, the first big takeaway for us was learning to speak that language to really match our expectations. The second big takeaway we took was that you want to be transparent upfront about your mission and your goals and some of your fundamental operating principles. If I give you a concrete example, we're in the business of making electric mobility accessible to as many people as possible. To do that, we've built a know-how of refurbishing vehicles across Europe and soon broader. That know-how could very well be put to use in refurbishing thermic vehicles and non-electric power vehicles. But the reality is it's simply not something we would do because it doesn't contribute towards a carbon-free mobility that we're aiming for. So you want to be able to make those statements early on, even if it means sacrificing a potential financial upside. And similarly, you want to be clear about some underlying principles you're going to operate with. You know, we consider that it's important every employee in the business contributing to our success benefits from an upside scenario. And so that means that everyone on the team, including our mechanics, have equity in the business. We're probably in the industry one of the only companies offering equity to mechanics, but we're confident that ultimately, even if it's not needed in the short term to attract them and hire them because they're not used to that kind of compensation, it actually delivers long-term success, and we should contribute to that. So whatever you do and whatever your goals and your principles are, make sure you're explicit about them early on, because you want to be able to refer back to them in difficult times in the future if needed. And the third lesson we took away was you want to choose long-term partners and long-term thinkers when choosing the VCs you're going to work with. If I think of the single most common traits that all our investors have in the business, it is that they think long-term. And the reason for it is we consider we're on a long-time horizon. Our mission is a 10-plus year time frame, and the kind of impact we want to have is over multiple decades. We want to work with people who think in similar timelines, and we've learned to assess that with 3 simple criteria. The first is you want to work with people who have a track record of supporting businesses over long timelines. And the best way to learn about that is to speak with other founders, learn about the reputation of the VC, and make sure that they're able to support you over long time frames. The second big takeaway was you want to optimize for VCs that can support you across multiple rounds. They are the ones who will be most committed for the long-term success because they will keep looking to support you over multiple time frames. And the third big takeaway was you want to work with people who ultimately are big believers in your mission and the cause. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, beyond the financial upside that they can generate, you know that the journey will come with ups and downs, will come with challenges. You want to work with people who can rally behind what it is you're trying to achieve in the long run and how exciting that mission is. And you want to make sure that that stays the North Star even when times become difficult. Wrapping up, it's been the right decision for us, and for those of you founders who are looking to build mission-driven businesses, there is a way to make it work with VCs. I hope some of those lessons were helpful here. If you had told me 18 months ago that we would be operating across Europe and launching a workshop in Brooklyn in the US to serve the East Coast, I would have thought this is madness. And the reality is today we're announcing that by the end of the year we'll be live on the East Coast. And so we're continuing to try and accelerate our journey towards a carbon-free, waste-free mobility. Thank you very much.